News Central Hour this hour begins in South Africa, where the main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, DA, says it now has proof that confirms President Cyril Ramaphosa lied about millions that were found at his farm in Limpopo. This comes after South Africa Revenue Service, Sars, confirmed that it has no record of the $580,000 paid to the Phala Phala farm. Sars confirmed this in response to the request by the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Johnston Houston, made in terms of Section 18, subsection 1 of the Promotion of Access to Information Act regarding the declaration of a certain traveler. The SARS information officer, after an extensive search for the record in various SARS passenger processing systems and engagement with the relevant business units within SARS, which he believed may have been in custody of or be in possession or have knowledge of the records requested, advised that the record could not be found and may not be in existence. And now, to discuss more on this, we are joined by the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Johnston Houston. Thank you so much, John, for joining us, and good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to the viewers. Great to be with
John,
you
I can't hear you. You might need to unmute your device so that...
I'm
all right. So
mute.
this new information kind of contradicts what Asim Mustafa, that is the businessman behind the buying of the cattle at the president's farm, said during his interview session. And he claimed that he declared the cash when it came to South Africa, but SARS, that is the South Africa Revenue Service, is saying they do not have records whatsoever of that payment. So how do we get to interpret this?
Well, I think it's very, very clear that, in fact, that money was not declared, as was indicated, and that's why there is no record. The fact that there is no record and it wasn't declared would also explain the president's really strange behavior and why that money was not banked in a formal banking facility, but shoved into the president's couch at his private home. Obviously, if the money was in the country legitimately and it complied with all the legal requirements, there would have been no need for the president to conceal the money in the manner in which he did. He would have simply taken it to a bank, had it deposited, exchanged into rands, and kept as a legitimate business transaction. It's very clear that there is no legitimate business transaction, as Mr. Ramaphosa and Mr. Mustafa have tried to portray. And in fact, what we're dealing here is money that was in the country unlawfully and clearly for ulterior purposes.
Well, with this latest information, John, and the Constitutional Court also denying that the president would not have access to go against the Phala Phala report. Now, what other options are there for President Ramaphosa, because his credibility is at stake? And even more, you would reckon that there's been this cloud of impeachment over his head for a while now. So what do you think he will do or can do in this case?
Well, there's two things that need to happen. Obviously, the president needs to come out and make a full and honest account. He held up his hand and swore to uphold the law of the Republic and the Constitution, and that would include the regulations that we're speaking about. Secondly, Parliament needs to be able to get out there and do what it should be doing, which is holding the president and the executive accountable by forming an ad hoc committee in Parliament to summon the president, to summon those people involved in the Phala Phala matter, so that we can finally get to the truth about how that money came to be in South Africa, what it was actually for, and why the president went to such lengths to conceal the theft of the money when it took place at his private residence. So I think that this dance now, where the president's tried to portray a veneer of a business transaction that was of the ordinary course of the business, has been exposed as part of the tissue of lies that exists around this matter.
Well, this latest development suggests that one can bring such amounts of cash into the country and not have it declared. Now, what does this say about the financial regulatory system of South Africa and security, those arms that are meant to monitor this kind of money movements?
Well, you may or may not be aware, but we were grey-listed just a week ago by the International Task Team, precisely because South Africa is not able to exercise controls over the movement of large amounts of money that could be the proceeds of international crime or terrorism within the country's borders. We now end up with a situation that the president himself is now embroiled in a scandal of this nature. One of the reasons precisely why we were grey-listed and why it's going to be very difficult for South Africa to interact now on the international financial stage. So, yes, the South African Revenue Service needs to move swiftly, we believe, to prosecute or to bring charges of violation of the exchange control regulations. And the South African Reserve Bank, who's responsible for these type of policies, need to take action. It cannot be that there's a special rule for the president and another rule that applies to everybody else. Equality before the law is essential. And frankly, the president should be leading by example in this case. Instead, he is leading the charge here, it seems, that has led to one of the reasons why we've been grey-listed.
All right, John, let's move away from the farm gate issue now and look at other matters. Now, the president will be announcing his cabinet changes this evening. So what are your expectations? What should we be looking out for? A bit of reshuffling, the new hands coming on board?
I don't think there's going to be major changes by the president. I think there's going to be a few cosmetic changes, some of the people being moved to other ministries, and of course filling the vacancies that have been there for a number of months now, where the president has not filled them. I think the big thing to watch out for this evening is who's going to be appointed as electricity minister. This was a ministerial position that was announced earlier this month by the president. It looks like somebody from outside of Parliament is going to be appointed. So that will be interesting to watch. But the reality is that, excuse me, these will be the same old faces around the table making the same bad decisions. I described it earlier as reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for giving us the details. Appreciate your presence.
Thank you.